So we'll have Mr. DiGiacinto second to add that phrase to the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Please call the roll.
They set it up because it's a computer that doesn't stay.
Mrs. Polinsky. Aye. Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
You know what I'm saying?
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer. Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donchez.
Aye. I believe that concludes Amendment 1. So we'll move to Amendment 2. I ask the clerk to read Amendment 2, and for Mr. DiGiacinto comments.
Section 735.05A 1 is changed from 3 days to 7 business days.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Simply, again, the thread is just to give people a little bit more time to respond. And it's 7 days is a little bit more, I think, favorable for individuals to respond.
Discussion, any comments on Amendment 2? Please call the roll on Amendment 2.
Mrs. Polinsky. Aye. Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer. Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donchez.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
Please read Amendment 3.
735.09, paragraph B, change from 20 days to 30 days.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Again, just more time.
Comments? Please call the roll on Amendment 3.
Mrs. Polinsky. Aye. Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer. Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donchez.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
Please read Amendment 4.
735.11, fees, paragraph A, change from 7 days to 15 days. In paragraph B, the first sentence is deleted, and paragraph E is deleted.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Okay, on the timing issue is still the same on giving people a little bit more time. Again, I do feel that there should be an initial registration fee. I do believe the current ordinance, how well it's being upheld right now, does require that. I feel that we are really addressing a specific subset of the population of Bethlehem right here in this, and they are homeowners and business owners that are paying for an alarm system installation, maintenance of such, and I think they're basically doing that to protect their property, and they should be commended for that, and not necessarily asked to pay annual fees on top of what they do to maintain their alarm. Again, my feeling on this is an initial fee. I do believe that the registration could be renewed annually. And if people fail to renew annually, they can, I think we left a penalty in there for that to take effect in case they did not renew. But I did ask that beyond the first fee or new registration, that there's not an annual fee continued.
Thank you. Comments? Mr. Evans.
I'll just make a brief comment. I think from the police department, there's been a terrific concern of how outdated the ordinance has become, and also how outdated all the information has become from all the alarm holders. And part of what they're looking to do here, and what we're looking to try and do as a city, is keep it updated, keep it maintained, keep everything as efficient as possible as far as our resources, and also for protection for the people using the alarms. But all of that, how we're looking to upgrade it, there is a cost to that, to the city, for everything that is going to be done now that hasn't been done, how it's gone behind, and the problems it has caused. So I think part of updating this whole ordinance is also adding a lot of expense, and I think the fees are fair and justified.
Any other comments? Please call the roll on Amendment 4.
Mrs. Polinsky. Aye. Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Nay.
Mr. Evans.
Nay.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donchez.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Please read Amendment 5.
735.99, the penalties for the first violation changed. It stays at $100, but the 30 days imprisonment or both is deleted. 2, the second violation changed from $300 to $200. 3, the third and subsequent violation changed from $600 or 90 days imprisonment or both to a fine of $500. Paragraph B, other Commonwealth of Pennsylvania state fines and penalties may also apply, is deleted. Paragraph C, if the department responds to a false alarm at an alarm site where the registration has been revoked, the penalties shall be tripled, is deleted.
Mr. DiGiacinto?
Yeah, again, I just thought we'd, as a result of this, bring the fines a little bit more in line and more reasonable by lowering the second and third fine primarily. The comment about the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania state fees, I would ask Mr. Spadoni, if that is already in the Commonwealth, their set of laws, I'm not sure why it has to be in this ordinance.
Mrs. Spadoni?
You should be aware that the preemption of the field and federalism, you cannot affect what the Commonwealth law says or does not say. You are subservient to them. If it's on the books, it's on the books.
That's all I have.
Any other comments? Ms. Dolan?
Would it make sense then or perhaps we need to know if Mr. DiGiacinto is interested in amending this amendment to keep what's necessary for Commonwealth of Pennsylvania law? If not, we're going to vote for it and we're going to have to deal with both issues, the issues of the money and the issue of being in compliance with Commonwealth law. And those are very different issues.
Again, I would ask Mr. Spadoni, I don't know if there needs to be a cross-reference to the Commonwealth in this ordinance.
Mrs. Spadoni?
I'm not going to, this is not,
And this is first read, too.
Yeah. It's not a mountain I think you need to die on. It's there. It doesn't hurt to have it in there. It doesn't hurt to have it out.
Okay.
Commonwealth law speaks for itself.
Okay.
Any other comments?
And perhaps before second reading, we could have some clarity
Absolutely.
on that, because it sounded as if the fire department was very interested in keeping that there, and that it was important and necessary. So if we could just get
Mrs.
clarification.
Spadoni, I ask if you just would review this ordinance and the amendments prior to our next meeting.
Sure.
Any other comments on Amendment 5? Please.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I am concerned about, after we set the budget, lowering perhaps revenue, a decrease in revenue. This is a very precariously balanced budget, and we've just lowered revenue a little bit, but this could be significant. And I don't know if there's an answer to that question, but if we built in, to start in December, the concept of increasing these fees, a lot of fees were increased during the budget process. What happens when we, after we pass the budget, lower those fees?
Mr. DiGiacinto?
Well, first off, to answer that question, I hope we are not budgeting violations. That would not be a good thing to do. Secondly, we are allowing for the registration fee to come into effect for this year, which should affect this budget if, in fact, it was put into the budget numbers for 2011. So I don't really think we're affecting our budget with any of these, at least the 2011 budget. So.
Ms. Dolan, if that's a concern, we could certainly have a response from the controller from Mr. Reichert prior to the next meeting.
Okay, and I'm not suggesting that it's budgeted like a line item violations. It's more of what you might call your regular revenue sources, sources of revenue, and I'm not sure where that would be embedded in the budget, but just in case there was a department depending on a certain, that they would regularly depend on a certain amount, and now they could regularly depend on a different amount. That concerns me. So we'll have another reading on it.
Absolutely. And I would ask the controller, maybe Mr. Reichert, to provide us with information as far as the total amount of dollars that the change will, how it would affect the budget.
Thank you.
Please call.
We can,
We can give you the answer now if you wish. I mean, we didn't budget a violation. What was eliminated was the fee. We know how many alarms there are. We know what that fee would generate, so at that $75,000. So it wasn't that this administration budgeted a violation, although we do that too. I mean, we do have a certain amount of violations per year. Everything in the budget's a prediction. You can predict such things within some sense of certainty. But this was not a violation. It's the fee associated with those alarms. And this was budgeted in, I mean, just to answer the question, I don't know that it's going to make or break our budget. It's $75,000, but it was budgeted in the 2011 budget, yes.
Mr.
I would hope that we weren't budgeting something that wasn't passed. That's. We brought this before City Council as a part of the budget package. It carried over beyond that, so. Well, you're going to get, with all the other fees that we increased, this was a part of that package. And so it was built into the budget. If we pass this, you're going to get the 2011 fee. If we pass this, you're going to go collect fee. You're going to go out and get registration fees if we pass this. Once again, we had anticipated that this would be dealt with prior to the budget as a part of the other fees that the package that we had presented. Yes, we would. Yeah, so you'll be covered for 2011 because you're going to go collect registration fees, correct? Correct. Okay, so we're good. But the fee's not in there. Yes, there isn't. We left the first time fee in there. It's a renewal fee that's been taken out. So the 15 and the 35? Yeah. It just won't be an ongoing revenue source for each year. That's accurate.
Please call the roll on Amendment 5.
Mrs. Zelinski?
Aye.
Mr. DiGiacinto?
Aye.
Ms. Dolan?
Nay.
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Mauer? Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Donchev?
Aye.
6-1 passes.
Please call the roll on Bill number 3 as amended.
Mr. President, I may have misspoke, or if it's, the fee is only paid upon an initiation, so it would only be new, as the ordinance was amended, it would only be new alarm. It wouldn't be the 3,000 folks that currently have alarms. So there would be no fee for someone who has an already initiated alarm system. So there would be no fees. That 75,000 would not come this year. Whose fault is that? I'm just correcting the statement, that's all. I don't know. I mean, we were here to assign blame, we can do that, but I mean, I'm just giving you the information that you had asked for in memo form now, since we have the answer.
I'm going to ask the clerk to read amendment number 6, which is the editorial amendment.
In section 735.11 fees, paragraph C, states the word semi-annual, and that word is changed to calendar. The amendment is sponsored by David DiGiacinto and Eric Evans.
Just a clarity on that.
Any comments? Please call the roll.
I don't have that. At least I don't think so.
Maybe
Okay, it's just, so it's, I'm sorry, semantics. Okay.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Zelinski?
Aye.
Mr. DiGiacinto?
Aye.
Ms. Dolman?
Aye.
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Mauer?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Donchev?
Aye.
7-0 passes.
Please call the roll on Bill number 3 as amended.
Mrs. Zelinski?
Aye.
Mr. DiGiacinto?
Aye.
Ms. Dolman?
Aye.
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Mauer?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Donchev?
Aye.
7-0 passes.
Thank you. We'll move to 10C, Bill number 4, amending the general fund budget, compliance officer salary, and health bill adjustments.
An ordinance of the City of Bethlehem, counties of Lehigh and Northampton, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending the general fund budget for 2011. The Council of the City of Bethlehem ordains that the total appropriations in the general fund budget be increased from $65,304,000 to $65,388,522. Section 2 lists the various allocations. Section 3 is the source of revenue, and Section 4 is the repeal of Bill number 4. It's sponsored by David DiGiacinto and J. William Reynolds.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
DiGiacinto. Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer. Mr. Reynolds. Mr. Donchev.
Aye.
6-0 passes.
10D, Bill number 5, amending a non-utility capital budget, skate park grant, and year-end adjustments. Bill 5.
An ordinance of the City of Bethlehem, Counties of Lehigh and Northampton, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending the 2011 capital budget for non-utilities. The Council of the City of Bethlehem ordains that total appropriations in the 2011 capital budget for non-utilities be increased from $13,492,612 to $16,227,016. Section 2 lists the allocations that are changed, and Section 3 lists the revenue sources. Section 4 is a repealer. Bill number 5 is sponsored by David DiGiacinto and J. William Reynolds.
Questions? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer. Mr. Reynolds. Absent. Mr. Donchev.
Aye.
6-0 passes.
10E, Bill number 6, amending the community development budget, year-end adjustments.
An ordinance of the City of Bethlehem, Counties of Lehigh and Northampton, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending the community development budget for 2011. The Council of the City of Bethlehem ordains that total appropriations in the 2011 community development budget be decreased from $6,924,040 to $6,101,241. Section 2 lists the allocations. Section 3 lists the revenue sources, and Section 4 is a repealer. Bill number 6 is sponsored by David DiGiacinto and J. William Reynolds.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donchev.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
10F, Bill number 7, amending Article 121, bond issues, general obligation notes, and lines of credit.
An ordinance amending Article 121 of the codified ordinances of the City of Bethlehem as amended, entitled Finance, by adding new Section 121.12 bond issues, general obligation notes, and lines of credit. The Council of the City of Bethlehem ordains that new Section 121.12 be added to read as follows. A, all proceeds of any bond issue, general obligation note, and line of credit, or any other type of loan or advance shall be deposited in a separate account entitled Bond Issue, General Obligation Note, Line of Credit as applicable. No expenditures and/or transfers of these funds shall be made from said separate account or accounts without prior written notice to City Council and the City Controller and prior approval by City Council. Paragraph B, all proceeds of any bond issue, general obligation note, and line of credit shall only be used for the purposes for which the funds are borrowed and/or advanced, and shall be utilized for no other purposes whatsoever without prior written notice to City Council and the City Controller and prior approval by City Council. Section 2 is a repeal of Bill number 7, is sponsored by David DiGiacinto and Eric Evans.
Mrs. Bedoni, on this amendment, on this ordinance that I'd ask you to draft on behalf of all of us, you did send members of council a memorandum dated February 11th where you kind of took our discussion at our last meeting at the Finance Committee about having some teeth, and you have a recommendation. I'd just like, if you were to address your recommendation, should it be part of this ordinance, or should it not be part of this ordinance, and your recommendation to this body?
I recognize not only your comments, but those of Committee Chair Reynolds, and I sent this memorandum because I think the new word, at least for the last 30 days in this body, is the word teeth. And the goal, as I understood it, and has been the goal previously in these lockbox ordinances, is to demand compliance with the ordinance to assure that the revenues and expenditures are dealt with appropriately. As a result of that, and on the instruction of the chairman, I looked at that rather closely, and I surveyed a number of other ordinances, and the first thing I did is I thought I'd look back at what former Councilman Leeson did with me in reference to the 3 other ordinances, which are lockbox. And they do not have any penalty provision, and recalling those discussions, a monetary fine or a term of imprisonment or any other, quote, teeth that can be put in the ordinance wouldn't assure the integrity of the ordinance being followed. The way that that is handled is set forth in my memo of February 11th, that would be by a mandamus action via a court, where some judge would be issue sensitive and client sensitive to meet the terms of the ordinance. So I am recommending strongly that we be consistent with our lock block ordinances and it be enacted as drafted without change.
But what you're saying, and if there were be a violation, just so we're clear here, this body, through you as our solicitor, could initiate a writ of mandamus.
Yes, and I would also state that one of the people that I talked to about this was District Attorney Morganelli. As you know, he sat in this chair previously some years ago, and I recall the reason I spoke with him is that if you recall, he sued the governor of Pennsylvania to sign death warrants, and we had a long discussion as to how that public official was charged to do his duty. And it's the same type of analysis here, where if there was some member of council or the administration or an employee of the city of Bethlehem that did not do what the ordinance said and it was egregious enough for council to act, the appropriate action could be filed to either compel them to do it or not to do it, depending on what the remedy would be.
Questions? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Blinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donchev.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
10G, Bill number 8, establishing Article 112, campaign finance reports.
An ordinance adding new Article 112, Campaign Finance Reports, to the codified ordinances of the City of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, by requiring that copies of campaign finance reports for candidates running for the offices of City Council, Mayor, City Treasurer, and City Controller be filed with the City Clerk's office before or on the due date. Such candidates must file with the County of Northampton as mandated by state law, and that such reports be posted on the city website no later than 5 working days after the due date. The Council of the City of Bethlehem ordains that new Article 112 be added to read as follows. Filing and posting of campaign finance reports. Candidates for the offices of City Council, Mayor, City Treasurer, and City Controller shall file a copy of their respective campaign finance reports with the Bethlehem City Clerk's office on or before the due dates of campaign finance reporting as mandated by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which requires such campaign finance reports to be filed with the County of Northampton. Such candidates shall receive a receipt for filing in the Bethlehem City Clerk's office. The Bethlehem City Clerk shall forward the filed campaign finance reports to the Information Services Bureau of Bethlehem, which shall post such reports on the Bethlehem City website not later than 5 days after the schedule mandated by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Section 2. This ordinance shall be effective beginning with the 2011 municipal elections. Section 3 is a repeal of Bill number 8, is sponsored by J. William Reynolds and Gordon Mauer.
I asked Mr. Spadoni to review the ordinance regarding the signature that Mr. Fenning raised at the last meeting. And Mr. Spadoni?
The campaign finance reports are clearly a public document, and there is no sensitivity to those being published. In fact, in one of my other jobs, you may know that I'm dealing with that currently in reference to Graysdale. So it is a public document, and I'm not concerned about those comments that have been offered for them to be redacted or otherwise not being published.
Thank you. Any comments? Mr. Evans?
I just have a comment to Attorney Spadoni in reference to his letter, his memo of February 6th. From your understanding, campaign finance reports are posted on Northampton County website. Is that something to be done or is done?
One of the things, if I may,
Go right ahead, Mr. Spadoni.
one of the things that happened, in speaking with the president, it sounded like a good idea, and I am in the county solicitor's office as well. And I spoke with the Director of Administration, Conklin, and voter registration Chair, D. Rumsey, and Ken Kraft was here previously. He's the chair of the Election Commission. And they all thought it was a good idea. In fact, they were a little surprised it wasn't done. So it's being added this year, starting this year, in the municipal election. And I think that's, a credit to your president bringing that to the county's attention.
Lehigh County has it. It seems like they're a little bit ahead of Northampton County. And they post all the campaign reports online. City of Allentown passed its own law because and I do agree with Councilman Schweier that I think people are more likely to go to a city's webpage than a county's webpage looking for information. And I think it's Lower Macungie, Councilman, Mr. Conrad, they're looking at the ordinance too, that they would post it on their webpage. But as of today, it is not posted on Hampton County's webpage. Mr. Reynolds?
I just wanted to say that this was a couple years ago when Mr. Donches, myself, and one of our former colleagues had sat down to talk about some sort of campaign finance package here in the city of Bethlehem, and this is one thing we had agreed on at the time. And I certainly think that the transparency, while we're able to do it now, it makes it a little bit easier for City of Bethlehem residents. And with that being said, I will support it as well. Thank you.
Any other comments? Ms. Dolan?
Just quickly, I had worked for a while with Councilman Schwader on trying to move forward some campaign finance reform, which I think is what you're referencing. We couldn't agree on fundraising limits. We couldn't get a consensus on that, but we strongly agreed with language very similar to this. In that process, I did some research and came across a national campaign finance reform organization called Common Cause, which is it's the largest and most, I believe, respected of the organizations that focus on that issue. And they did a lot of research, and they discovered that, interestingly, even though this is the simplest type of reform, it is the most effective. Anything that makes it easy for the public to see what is given and who's giving puts a chilling, definitely put a chill on what some people might consider improper gifts. So I'm 100% for this, and very, very glad that you're bringing this forward.
Thank you. Any other comments? Let me just say, when I had this drafted with Mr. Spadoni, I discussed it in depth with the city clerk and the assistant clerk, just to make sure they felt comfortable with it, because when we discussed this a few years ago, when we were talking about limits and dollar amounts, it was becoming very cumbersome, I felt, for the city clerk. And this is just an extension of what we submit. And I think I'm a strong believer in transparency. The public has a right to know who we get our contribution money from and how we spend it. And so basically, we're just doing what we do with the county, making an extra copy and submitting it to the city clerk. That will be posted on the city's webpage for public review. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donches.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
We'll move to resolutions. 11A, approving records destruction, City Controller's Office.
Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem, under the Municipal Records Manual and Act. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem that the disposition of the public records for the Controller's Office as listed in Exhibit A is hereby authorized. Resolution 11A is sponsored by David DiGiacinto and J. William Reynolds.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donches.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
11B, approving records destruction, Financial Services Bureau.
Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem that under the Municipal Records Manual and Act, it is resolved that the disposition of the records of the Bureau of Financial Services as listed in Exhibit A is hereby authorized. Resolution 11B is sponsored by David DiGiacinto and J. William Reynolds.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donches.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
11C, certificate of appropriateness for 201 Broadway Avenue.
A certificate of appropriateness under the provisions of the Act of the Pennsylvania Legislature and Bethlehem Ordinance, whereas it is proposed to remove and replace the sign panels on the convenience store at 201 Broadway. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem that a certificate of appropriateness is granted for the work. Resolution 11C is sponsored by David DiGiacinto and Eric Evans.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DeGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donches.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
11D, certificate for 128-130 West 4th Street.
A certificate of appropriateness for a proposal to revise the previously approved facade design for renovations at 128 to 130 West 4th Street. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem that a certificate of appropriateness is granted for the work. Resolution 11D is sponsored by David DeGiacinto and Eric Evans.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DeGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donches.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
We'll move to new business. City Council, as of today, will vote on the termination of Officer Leonard March 1st. Correct? Any new business, members of the council?